Hi, Anne-Marie. I wanted to have a quick chat to you because I'm really nervous about COVID and pupil absences and how easy it is to miss pupils, or how easy it is for pupils to be absent and thus miss on the safeguarding things. I mean, the Arthur case as well has really highlighted it, that schools can raise something but miss it, and then quite a long time can go in between where you don't see a child, and that's making me a bit nervous. What do you think we should be doing?
So under your policy of, for example, your ordinary first day callback, etc., you follow that.
Yeah.
And remember, already we have to remember that you've got your families that you already know, the known people.
Yeah.
And then you've got the new that you unknown.
Yeah.
So don't get too comfortable with we already know what we know.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be families still on the. So we've learned a lot about the anti-vaxxers and the anxieties that it's a big cocktail of lots, isn't there? In the sense of why. So all we know is, is this child genuinely not in because of the anxieties of a parent not wanting them to catch it, or the anxieties of a parent worrying about the child saying things about things at home. So if we treat every child the same in that model of, well, we expect you to be in school unless you tell me other, then your approach would be very supportive in that manner of, okay, well, the why. So of course the first bit would be understanding, monitoring it, and then the why.
And this is why training for school reception staff, people who take the phone calls, is so important, because they're the ones that will hear and have those kind of conversations by the phone. So it's really important for that.
And also tone of voice. I always say, for example, do you get, what do you want, or do you get, actually they're sleeping, or what do you get when you call, or do you get just a voice message? So all that detail needs to be done. And also, as a DSL, have you got a script, or where you can give your staff who call back key things you want them to cover, and maybe some prompts? As in, I'm sorry to hear that. How are you coping with that? Do you know what I mean? Because there's an element of balancing it to be express empathy, but at the same time, be genuine in it. And I find that the ones that are faking it are the ones that can't deal with that, because that's when it kind
goes
of gets
off script. They weren't ready for it.
Absolutely, it's exhausted. And I remember, this isn't even funny, but some people, when you challenge them, I remember a few families where someone had always died. It was just convenient in the sense of, and then we don't like to challenge anyone who's suffering bereavement. Do you understand? And we know there's people who die, don't get me wrong, but some people, they know what to say to push you back. Oh, our dog died of 20 years. Oh, I'm so sorry, I understand. So please just be aware of, yes, we know that, and that might be genuine, but don't automatically see that as an option to say, okay, so get advice basically from your safeguarding lead if you are your staff calling up. That's what I'd like to say.
Yeah. And then, so say you talked about the answer phone and things like that. That's a really common one where you try to, say you've got a list of, at the moment, I've got 34 off today. So 34 phone calls have had to be made to find out where they are. Most parents will phone up already to tell you that they're not coming in, but that can sometimes take time. And sometimes it can be, a little time before you get a response. And a lot of time you're leaving messages on the answer phone. How much do you think that staff should be nagging and phoning and following up, and and then you start getting a bit nervous, and like especially split parents, do I phone the other parent to find out? You start getting a little bit nervous about, especially if it's not an amicable relationship. Sometimes you worry that you're going to make it worse. That's a phrase I hate, but I hear it a lot.
So legally, one could argue, if they have PR and there are no orders in place, the absent parent who has PR can still know about their child's education. Okay, so one could argue that when you do your paperwork with parent A being the main carer, they are aware that if the child's not in school and they're not contactable, then you will contact the other person who has PR. So you already sold that model to them, so they're aware of it. Okay. Likewise, another option is when you get the voicemail, again, by having a procedure already in your setting,
the
ones that you spoke to, the ones so you can analyze, and then you've got a short list of ones that you got voicemail. There should be a follow-up maybe a few hours later, or maybe an email. So you've got a process where you're still seen to be trying to get through. Okay.
And also, we have a system where it's not always the same person making the phone call. We'll get the school secretary to do the phone call first, but then we might get the tutor, and that seems more the sympathetic. Oh, we're just worried about your child. We want to check they've got the right homework. So it's not sounding like we are not believing them, because sometimes that it's not always a worst case scenario, and we don't want them to presume that we're thinking the worst of them, but we need to make sure we're following it through.
Exactly. And making sure that you've exhausted it. So to the point where one could argue, if it was to go ugly later on, you've demonstrated that you went above and beyond, rather than just tick box. Okay. So if you've exhausted it, it's fine, even if you don't get an answer, because one could argue you've been and I remember a family like that where it was very clear they were going out of their way to be invisible, and it was very clear because when we had discussions and meetings, it was very consistent with they wanted to be seen absent, because they had things to hide. So we don't know the bigger picture, and I think your role is education, yes, but we learned with a lot of these recent cases that you are the only one who sees the child 5 days a week. And I was reading in one of my social work journals, actually, that I'm publication that comes every month, that there's been an increase of EHEs up by a third. So since COVID, a lot of families have opted for EHEs. And on the back of that, it would therefore mean, for you, what have you done to kind of demonstrate that actually you're doing your best to actually have contact with somebody who is responsible for that child?
It's so hard. And then we're just coming up to 7 minutes. I think this is a really meaty subject, so I think we maybe need to do another one of these.
Okay.
Then if you've got someone that's away a lot, sometimes school refusers, I found that COVID has meant that you've got more and more school refusers. It's easier for my age. I can actually phone and talk to the child. I can talk to 14-year-olds, even if they don't want to. I can kind of get a conversation going with them. But when they're younger, school refusers is even harder, because that's when you start to worry about they're not coming in because they're having an anxiety attack or whatever, a panic attack, or it's the child that's worried about the mask, not the parents. And that anxiety, that becomes a bigger thing. So maybe something we can talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, because as you're saying that, like the MP attack, there's certain things that happened last year that the knee jerk would be, right, what have we learned from that? What can we put in place now to actually be open with parents about our safety and about their safety, and what could we put in place to then make it part of a standard that we're going to implement as good practice? Do you understand? So we'll talk about that in part 2.
All right.
Okay, no problem.
See you later.
See you in a bit. Bye.